The podcast begins by discussing the current state of the Democratic Party and its growing dissatisfaction with President Joe Biden. According to recent polls, only 18% of voters and 36% of Biden's 2020 voters believe he is mentally fit for the job. This has led to increasing pressure from top Democrats, including Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Hakeem Jeffries, for Biden to step down. Shapiro suggests that the Democrats are ready to toss Joe Biden off the back of the train due to his declining poll numbers and perceived inability to win the 2024 election. Shapiro highlights a series of recent events, including Biden's poor debate performance, an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and Trump's selection of a vice presidential candidate. He notes that Biden's senility is now widely acknowledged, even by his own party. The podcast plays a clip of Biden forgetting the name of his defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, referring to him as the black guy. Shapiro then discusses Biden's recent COVID-19 diagnosis, suggesting that Democrats might use this as an excuse to push him out of the race. He criticizes the Biden campaign's social media response to the diagnosis, calling it the worst campaign he has ever seen. He speculates that Biden might be considering dropping out of the race and has been asking his aides if they believe Kamala Harris can win. The podcast presents poll numbers showing Trump leading Biden in several swing states, but cautions Republicans not to become complacent, as the race could change dramatically if Biden drops out. Shapiro emphasizes the importance of voter turnout operations and urges Republicans to remain active in their support for Trump. The discussion then shifts to the third night of the Republican National Convention, RNC. Shapiro praises the RNC's production and its focus on presenting a permission structure for non-traditional Republican voters to support the party. He highlights several speakers, including members of the Trump family and everyday Americans sharing their stories. A significant portion of the podcast is dedicated to analyzing JD Vance's acceptance speech as the Republican vice presidential nominee. Shapiro describes Vance's personal story, as told in his book Hillbilly Elegy, as amazing, and notes that it was even made into a Hollywood movie. However, he expresses concern about the disconnect between Vance's life story and his current economic policy proposals. Shapiro argues that Vance's economic views, as presented in his speech, are more aligned with those of Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders than traditional Republican free market principles. He notes that Vance's speech focused on criticizing Wall Street, blaming free trade for job losses, and promising to bring manufacturing jobs back to America through tariffs and subsidies. Shapiro challenges several of Vance's economic claims, particularly regarding the impact of NAFTA on American jobs and manufacturing. He presents data showing that NAFTA did not significantly affect job growth or manufacturing output in the United States. He argues that the decline in manufacturing jobs is primarily due to automation and technological advancements, not outsourcing or free trade. Shapiro expresses concern about Vance's economic proposals, suggesting that they could lead to higher prices for consumers and potentially expand government intervention in the economy. He argues that Vance's approach is disconnected from the realities of global economics and questions whether the government can effectively reshape economic trends through policy alone. The podcast also addresses Vance's statement that America is not just an idea, it is a homeland. Shapiro agrees with this sentiment, but questions what exactly Vance is arguing against. He suggests that Vance might be pushing back against the notion of universalizing American values or the idea that they can be easily exported or imported. However, he maintains that ideas are still crucial to America's identity and that people do, in fact, fight for ideas, citing the Cold War as an example. The podcast concludes with an update on the recent assassination attempt on Donald Trump. New information reveals that the would-be assassin had made online searches related to Trump, Biden, and the Democratic National Convention. Shapiro expresses concern about the Secret Service's handling of the situation, noting that they had identified the shooter as a threat 10 minutes before Trump went on stage, but still allowed him to proceed.